Hi, welcome to my first YouTube video. This video is one of many that I hope to share with you about various aspects of my spiritual path, things that I've tried, and just my opinions on things. Probably, I just found that there were so many things that I wanted to share. That I would share with people one-on-one, individually, or in a yoga class or something. And I just thought it was about time to find an outlet for things that I not only want others to know, but that a lot of people have asked me about. And in the event that you're curious to find out more, this will be a resource to you, maybe of some kind. So anyways, so recently I returned from my second meditation course at the Dhammatrana Vipassana Center in Ontario. And for those of you who don't know what Vipassana is, I'm sure there are many of you who do, so I will do my best to describe it as accurately as I can. And of course, if I make a mistake, please let me know. And so the Vipassana tradition is roughly 2,500 years old. It originated in India, and it was a technique taught by the Buddha for the liberation of all, to eradicate suffering, and to bring awareness back into the body as a way of discovering impermanence, and also the core teachings of abstaining from craving and aversions. I guess abstaining is the wrong word. It's more like eradicating craving and aversion. Sorry, I got distracted by something on my phone. Anyways, so the technique was passed down through an unbroken lineage for the past 2,500 years, and was adopted by a teacher named Sen Goenka in contemporary times. And Goenka brought the tradition from Burma, which is where he was taught and where he was born, I think, where he grew up. And he eventually brought the Vipassana tradition over to the West, over to centers all over the world, essentially packaging the technique in a way that really allows students to immerse themselves in it fully, and also to create an environment where people can really learn the technique in an uninterrupted way. And which led to the creation of the Vipassana Center, where the Vipassana technique is taught by Sen Goenka. He was passed as of this time, but the teachings are given through recordings of his voice. So essentially how it works is the center is like a resident. You stay there, you live there for 10 days, and it's an entirely donation and volunteer-based organization. And it's incredible because it's been running in Canada, it's been running for over 20 years, and I'm sure worldwide even longer. But the center here in Ontario started off very small and has since expanded with 3 women's residences and cabins, and the men have a 2-story residence, and they have, their facilities are expanding. They have amazing staff who are all, volunteer-based, who run the center so beautifully. You really feel like you're in this beautiful just container of people who are dedicated to service and to serving others in a really beautiful, selfless way. And the property is just an hour or so north of Toronto, and it's on a beautiful piece of land that used to be like a Boy Scout camp or something. And it's surrounded by forest. There's like a beautiful trail you can walk on, and the food they serve there is so great. Anyways, besides the point. essentially what a person who is, trying this for the first time would have to do in order to learn it in this way is to sign up for a 10-day course. So the 10-day course is an immersive journey into the Vipassana meditation, and to really give it like a fair trial, fair chance, to see if this is something that works for you. So 10 days is the minimum for a new student. And the environment that they create there is to observe certain precepts or certain, what's another way of saying it? Like a code of conduct, I guess, which creates the perfect environment for you to learn the technique. So essentially, that means from when you arrive, the night that the course begins, there's no more talking. You have to observe noble silence, which means that you can't speak to anyone, you can't look at anyone, you have to keep to yourself. There's a course manager and an assistant teacher, and those are the only people that you can talk to directly. Course manager handles things that's related to like your residence, how comfortable you are, whether you need anything in your dorm, and the assistant teacher is there to help you learn the technique and answer any questions you might have that Goenka doesn't cover in the recorded meditations. So you observe the silence, and there's no other forms of distraction really allowed. So they don't enforce it, but really you're not supposed to bring a journal, a book, any sort of entertainment. You're really just supposed to allow this time to be for the practice, for minimal distractions, minimal stimulation. So yeah. And I think that when you're there, you don't really want to be doing that stuff anyways, because that environment is so steeped in focused meditation time, and that you really just, I personally felt really compelled to just like follow the rules, take it really seriously, and just be there, get the most out of it. So yeah, that's one part of it. The other part of it is that there is a daily timetable of structured and unstructured meditation time. So the wake up bell goes off at 4 o'clock in the morning, which can be pretty jarring on your first morning. For me, I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? The second I heard that bell go off at 4 a.m., it's kind of intense the first time you hear it. And then I won't really get too much into the specifics, but basically from 4 a.m. to 9 p.m., you do essentially 10 to 12 hours of meditation. There are 3 mandatory group sits in which everybody, men and women, oh, by the way, men and women are segregated. So, but men and women on separate sides of the room, along with the teachers and everybody, the serving staff as well, everyone sits in meditation together for 3 hours on 3 separate 1-hour meditations 3 times a day. So those are mandatory for everybody. The rest of the time is, sometimes you are required to come back to the meditation hall and sit so that you can learn a different aspect of the technique. But the rest of the time is sort of, meditate in your own room. You can go out for a walk, or you can meditate. Later on in the course, you'll be given a cell, which is like a windowless, dark room, very small, where you can meditate without any disruptions at all. And I found that to be where I had some of the most craziest experiences in the meditations. But anyways, so immediately you are pretty much immersed in the practice. And without getting into the practice too much, it's broken up very strategically into what's called samadhi. And you do one part of the Vipassana, which is actually a prelude to Vipassana meditation, which is specifically designed to sharpen the focus of your mind. So samadhi, as it was taught to us by Goenka, means focusing the mind, training the mind, because when you arrive, I'll speak as to my own experiences, when I arrived, my brain was very scattered. I had never sat in meditation for longer than 20 minutes, let alone 10 hours a day. So I kind of felt a little bit psycho at the beginning because, you'd be sitting there and trying to focus on the initial meditation, which is called Anapanasati. And you learn that for the first few days of the 10-day course. And so sitting there trying to, do the Anapana, which is essentially just following your inhale and exhale. It's very, very simple. And I found that I couldn't do it for longer than 30 seconds at a time because my mind would just fly all over the place to something that happened 10 years ago, to what I wish would happen in the future, to this thing about this person. It's like just relentless. Like your mind just can't focus at all. But those few seconds of focus that you do get end up carrying you forward. They end up being that that sort of necessary momentum that you need to just continue on. And over time, like, think about it, like 10 hours a day, several days, like by day 3, you're gonna feel pretty much like your mind, without any distractions, is gonna be pretty calm and balanced for the most part, but I'll get into a little bit more of that later. So yeah, it's very powerful. It really shows you where, or how much your mind is just prone to scattering all over the place. Like, you have absolutely no control over your thoughts. They just take you for a ride. They want to show you all kinds of freaking shiny things and scary things, and it's just overwhelming. So the first couple of days can be challenging for that reason. And I also found that I was really sleepy because, like, you're sitting there, focusing on your breath, and immediately you just want to fall asleep. So I would have to take several naps a day at the beginning. And thankfully you can do that. They don't control how much sleep you get during the day. Like, you can go to your room and relax if you need to. Yeah. So yeah, and then as you continue on, you are given the Vipassana technique, and it's different in the sense that it focuses more on sensations in your body. So by then your mind is pretty sharpened, and you're able to scan your body top to bottom, one piece at a time, and really just feel sensations. And a big part of it is keeping in mind, or just holding it in your awareness, that every sensation that you feel is impermanent. It's coming and going. You can even feel, if you get very quiet and still, you can feel the sensations as kind of like subtle vibrations. So they're not even, it's not like a solid sensation. It's constantly changing. It's just vibrating. It's just energy, waving around and moving around. And it's really a beautiful way to embody, in an embodied way, feel the impermanence of all reality. And that teaching, in combination with how much time you're spending on the practice itself, you really start to like go deeper and deeper and deeper into what feels like a total reprogramming of your subconscious mind. Especially as you sit there, the last couple of days are spent in what's called sitting of strong determination. So you're discouraged from moving at all. In the first couple of days, you can sort of change positions, recross your legs, shift around in your seat. But for the last few days, when you're deeply in the Vipassana practice, you're encouraged to sit for as long as you can without moving, without opening your legs or your hands or doing anything different. And at that point, you really get to feel, you really get to just hold yourself through the ups and downs of what it's like to just not move for such a long period of time. Like, there are moments when you feel extreme pain, or in your lower back, or you feel extreme like resistance to the whole experience itself and you want it to be over and you're like, when is this going to end? But at that point, you're so immersed in the practice that you can sit with yourself as you ride this wave of discomfort and it comes right back down. So the whole time you're essentially meditating on the fact that nothing lasts forever, like everything is coming and going all the time. And that is what helps you reprogram your subconscious mind from the perspective of the people who teach this meditation. It's not, universal knowledge or something. Like, other people have all kinds of meditations that they resonate with, but this lineage in particular says that the way out of suffering is to acknowledge the fact that impermanence is the only truth that there is. And the more that you can stay within a state of equanimity, so essentially just meeting all of your experiences with the same level of reaction, which is no reaction. Good, pleasurable sensations, really negative, painful sensations, they rise to the surface and you meet all of them with the same level of just no reaction. You're just witnessing them coming and going, unfolding, and all that. So the whole core teaching of it being, don't wish or don't crave pleasurable feelings or pleasurable experiences, and don't push away uncomfortable experiences. And over time, after doing that for 10 hours a day, every day for 10 days with no distractions, you really start to feel like, wow, the truth of that in your body. And you really do feel like, you're changing in all of these really profound ways. So with all of that being said, I wanted to just get into some of my personal, I would call them pros and cons, or positives, and I wouldn't call them negatives. I would just call them like challenges that I experienced doing my first Vipassana course. And I just wanted to quickly touch on at the end my most recent course that I did and how it was different. So some of the massive positives are things I already mentioned, which is you start to feel the change on a very real level. And another thing is being in that environment, especially with the fact that, your day is very structured. You eat at the same time every day. You create a routine and you're with your own thoughts. It creates a really interesting, like, monastic environment for you to go really deeply inward and be with your thoughts, see your true self, and that all sounds like beautiful, wow, but in reality, it's actually kind of scary to see yourself at that level. I remember for the first couple of days of my first retreat, I was really scared. I was having a lot of fear just like sort of come up about like, am I gonna go crazy? Is this good for me? Am I gonna become ungrounded? Like, some of my deepest fears that I hold in general about life were just coming to the surface so strongly. And thankfully I had a really great assistant teacher who helped me sort of ground and come back, or just recognize that those thoughts are essentially just fear. In the Vipassana course, they're called sankharas, which is, I guess you could describe it as repetitive, deeply rooted habit patterns that are perpetuating your suffering. So you become really confronted with that. And huge positives that I took away as well was just the ability to be in this altered state of mind. It's not like you're like doing drugs or something, but it's entirely self-created, natural feeling of just total tranquility. There is like so much scientific evidence that meditation is really good for your brain. It increases the amount of gray matter, which is something that one of the other students told me recently. And it also either shrinks or enlarges your amygdala. I don't know which one is the beneficial one, but it creates it shrinks or enlarges your amygdala to a size where you are not overreacting to situations, and you're able to stay in sort of like a comfortable place in your nervous system when triggers arise. It's not the best explanation, and I probably should have fact checked that before I told you, but anyways, just has really positive benefits. You don't even need to know the science behind it, because you feel it in your body. You feel like, wow, like I personally felt the best I've ever felt. It felt very similar to taking anti-anxiety medication, which in the past I took a couple of times. And I was like, wow, I feel so tranquil. I feel like nothing could faze me. I feel so at peace. I feel so surrendered into this moment. Those were all things that I was just feeling naturally, and it was just a result of all this time meditating. And it's also really cool to be in an environment with other people who are all doing the same thing. I think that's really special when you're in this contained space where you're all working towards this like common goal, and you're all really deeply committed. It's very inspiring to just sit in the meditation hall with all these other people from all walks of life, all races, all ages, all genders, you know, like everyone. We're all just there meditating, working on our practice. It feels very, it feels like we're doing something really important and sacred. But there is no religious component to it. There's no spiritual component to it, other than the fact that the teaching itself is very, you know, it's of a spiritual nature, but there isn't anything like ritualistic about it at all. It's very much in the body, and it's very much the breath. So it's things that anybody from any religion will benefit from, and also maybe won't feel deterred by, because it has nothing to do with any sort of like religious teachings at all. Even though it was taught by the Buddha, it's not a Buddhist teaching. So I thought that was really beautiful. But of course it really was like the most profound experience of my entire life, I would say, hands down. One of the most real rewarding experiences I've ever had, because it was, you know, the hardest I've ever worked at something spiritual to this level. Other times you might do a yoga class for an hour, or you might, like, you know, take plant medicine, which is a journey, and it is scary, and it does come with its own similar feeling of doing something rewarding or meaningful. But this, so immersive for 10 days, it just, sometimes it feels just like never ending. I'm like, damn, am I ever gonna get out of here? That's sort of like how I felt. But by the end of it, also just that stored lack of dopamine release from talking to anybody, from reading anything, from listening to music, from, you know, even really acknowledging yourself at like a person, like at a, like on some level, you've really just abandoned your whole external self, because you're like, no one's looking at me, I'm doing my own thing, like I barely exist to the people around me. So a part of your external identity just kind of dies for a bit, and it feels really good. At least for me, it felt really good. I was like, wow, this is nice. You don't have to mask, you don't have to participate in society, like you don't have to know what's going on, you don't have to be in this hyper vigilant state of like, you know, what's going on, who's doing that, and you just are. It's like you just have permission to just be, in a sense. But of course you are working really hard. And I guess that brings me to what I would say are some of the cons, which is that it's really, really, really hard work physically. It's hard to sit for that long. The most recent course that I did, which was only 5 days, I felt extreme physical pain in my back when I came home. Took days to recover, and of course the last course, 10 days, I felt just really stiff and not good in my body, not good. So it's kind of this dichotomy where you feel the best you've ever felt spiritually, emotionally, honestly, but physically, like I felt broken. Especially given, I mean, I'm a yoga teacher and I teach fitness as well. And fitness is a really big part of my life. I move every day. I walk my dog for 3 hours a day. So to not move, to not do anything except for sit cross-legged on the floor for that many hours in a day for such a long period of time got to be very, very challenging. And while in the meditation itself, the physical pain becomes part of your meditation. As I mentioned earlier, it helps you sort of just ride that wave of discomfort, which really is super meaningful. There is a part of me that feels like, given the fact that this is a very old tradition and it comes from the East, you know, there's just a different way of doing things there, especially at that time. So I don't think it's necessary for the practice to be modernized for the Western society of 2025, but I'm sure that if it was, it would look very different, or it would have a somatic component, it would have like a movement component, or just, you know, they would even teach you how to sit correctly, which is not part of the course. They don't really teach you like how to sit correctly, which can lead to injuries. And so if you're someone who struggles to sit, like I think they do accommodate people with challenges, like you could sit in a chair, you can have a backrest, but from what I saw, they strongly discourage that. Like if you can sit with a straight back on the floor with just a couple of cushions, they really try to encourage you to go that route before you seek any support, which is what I witnessed. I don't know about other places, but so that's a con for sure. Another con is this didn't directly apply to me, but it was something that a few people have raised that I know, and other students I spoke to, that I figured is worth sharing, which is that a lot of time spent in silent contemplation for people with addictions and people with trauma might not have the same benefits. It might actually be difficult in a detrimental way. Just because I think there are people who struggle with trauma and addictions that really require like the coping mechanism of having a daily practice that doesn't involve just like silence, you know. And especially if someone hasn't really explored their trauma, it might just become re-triggered if after long periods of silence without any reassurance from other people. So you kind of do feel like you're in this like island of your own self. And while that can be a really cool way to just like self-soothe and to help yourself, you know, through a difficult experience without any external support, a lot of the time I think we are just running away from discomfort. And so I think many people would find it very beneficial to take those things away. But for people who do have like other things that they're dealing with, I think it could be pretty damaging. So there's that. And I know this is running a bit long, so I just wanted to finish by talking a little bit about my most recent experience. So if you're an old student, which means if you've completed a 10-day course, you can participate in shorter courses. And just recently, my partner and I attended a 3-day course, which was 5 days in total. And I think that upon doing my second course, I really started to see how the benefits of the practice go so much more beyond just Vipassana. I started to feel how, first of all, how important it is to purify your mind. It's not something we have the chance to do in our daily life. We don't have any setting in which we can just fully retreat from our life, fully retreat from society, and focus solely on ourselves and our own thoughts, and examining our thoughts on a really deep level. So I just wanted to share how grateful I was to be given that opportunity in such a supportive setting where everything, like as far as my physical needs, were taken care of. Stayed in a really comfortable little cabin, had very nourishing, grounding food that was genuinely made with love. And to just have these things sort of looked after for you while you do this practice, I found just like so supportive and beautiful. And you really get to go deep with things that you're dealing with in your life. And for me, that was noticing the fact that my mind had just become hijacked by how much external sources of entertainment and distraction that I've been using, and how that sort of honestly messes up your brain a little bit. It makes you incapable of just focusing on any practice for longer than a few minutes. And I think it's really important for our attention spans and for in our wellness culture, we don't really have a component that focuses on purifying your thoughts and purifying your mind. And so this beautiful structured environment is a great place to do that and to explore that. I found that in this altered state, not only was I able to go deep with my Vipassana practice, but I also found it an amazing way to explore other practices like manifestation and inner child work. Those things happen for me totally spontaneously. And I was so grateful to just be taken into really deep experiences with my inner child in a way that I never have before. And another component of Vipassana, especially at the very end, is called metta, and it's which means love. And I really resonated with the love metta part of the practice this time. I sent a lot of metta to people in my life, to my body, to my internal organs, to my inner child, and it was just really beautiful, and it was unexpected. I thought for sure, I was going to go really deep with Vipassana, but it was also a great opportunity to just explore other really deep forms of healing that are also just as necessary and also just as needed and beneficial. So that sort of wraps it up. And if you have any questions at all, I'm happy to chat with you about that. And I look forward to sharing more videos with you about my journey. And I'll have a lot of exciting things to share in the coming months about things that I'm doing. And lots of love to you. And thank you so much for listening.